It was October 3rd, 2013, on the idyllic shores of Nosy Be, Madagascar, a postcard-perfect spot where turquoise waters meet white, sandy beaches. Sébastien Joudelet, a 38-year-old French bus driver, had come to this tropical paradise for a much-needed break. A single father to an 11-year-old daughter back in Montreuil, a Parisian suburb, Sébastien was a frequent traveler to Madagascar, drawn to its beauty and culture. But on this day, what was supposed to be a blissful vacation turned into a nightmare that would shock the world. Unbeknownst to Sébastien, the island was already simmering with fear and anger. Days earlier, an 8-year-old local boy had tragically gone missing, his body later discovered in horrifying condition. The grisly rumors that followed, murmurs of foreign involvement and accusations of sinister crimes, stirred up a frenzy among the residents. Fueled by grief, fear, and whispers of revenge, the community's frustration ignited into full-blown panic. Enter Sébastien and Roberto Gianfala, a Franco-Italian hotel worker in his 50s. On that fateful morning, the two men were confronted by an angry mob of around 300 people. The crowd, consumed by rage and misinformation, accused them of being predators responsible for the child's death. Imagine the shock. You're enjoying a holiday and suddenly you're caught in the storm of an angry, vengeful crowd. Sébastien and Roberto tried to reason, to plead, to deny the unfounded accusations, but logic was no match for the mob's fervor. Sébastien's desperate words were recorded, a haunting echo of his final moments. "I am the victim of a conspiracy. I am innocent," he cried. But when he uttered, "I don't like children," his attempt to distance himself from the allegations backfired horribly. The crowd twisted his words, taking them as an admission of guilt. In a panicked rush to clarify, Sébastien shouted, "I love kids. I have a little girl." But the mob had already decided his fate. The scene that unfolded was nothing short of horrifying. Stripped naked, mutilated, and burned alive on a beach, Sébastien and Roberto met a gruesome end at the hands of vigilantes. Even more chillingly, a third man, the boy's own uncle, was also killed in the same manner. The mob, convinced by rumors and grief, acted as judge, jury, and executioner without a shred of evidence. In the aftermath, Madagascan police confirmed what was tragically clear. There was no connection between Sébastien, Roberto, and the boy's death. Authorities suggested the child might have drowned, and that his injuries were inflicted post-mortem. The murders of these innocent men were based entirely on baseless accusations and hysteria. Back in Montreuil, Sébastien's neighbors were stunned. Described as mild-mannered and friendly, he had no criminal record, no history of wrongdoing, and no ties to the heinous crimes of which he was accused. He was simply a man in the wrong place at the worst possible time. Justice, albeit delayed, began to unfold. Madagascan authorities arrested 26 people linked to the killings, and French detectives launched their own investigation. Eventually, 37 individuals stood trial. While most were acquitted or given leniency, sentences ranged from 3 months to 7 years, a stark reminder of how a moment of collective rage can destroy innocent lives. The tragedy of Sébastien Joudelet and Roberto Gianfala remains a chilling testament to the dangers of mob mentality. Sébastien's vacation ended in a way no one could have imagined, his cries for innocence echoing as a haunting reminder of how quickly paradise can turn to hell. So, if you're ever lounging on a beach sipping a cocktail, remember, sometimes the most dangerous thing in paradise isn't the wildlife or the weather, it's the people. In a chilling and tragic incident, a tourist visiting the picturesque Swat Valley in northwest Pakistan was dragged from a police station and brutally lynched by a mob, leaving the nation and the global community in shock. Accused of desecrating the Quran, Islam's holy book, the man's fate took a horrifying turn, showcasing the lethal power of mob violence fueled by accusations of blasphemy. The incident unfolded in Madyan, a tranquil summer retreat in Swat District known for its lush landscapes and serene beauty. However, the serenity was shattered when allegations against the tourist sparked fury among locals. The situation escalated rapidly as news spread and a large mob descended upon the area, driven by outrage and religious fervor. Local police initially intervened, rescuing the accused and taking him into protective custody. Their efforts, however, were short-lived. The mob, incited by fiery rhetoric reportedly broadcast from a nearby mosque, grew more determined. Overwhelmed and unable to contain the swelling crowd, the police were forced to retreat. Seizing the opportunity, the mob stormed the station, dragged the man into the streets, and subjected him to a brutal death. What followed was even more harrowing. Video footage captured on mobile phones showed the man's lifeless body being paraded through the streets, a grotesque display of collective rage. In a final act of violence, the mob set his body ablaze, turning the tragic incident into an even more horrifying spectacle. The footage quickly circulated on social media, sparking outrage and condemnation across Pakistan. Authorities confirmed that the violence left 11 people injured, including 8 police officers who had tried to hold back the enraged crowd. Malankan Division's regional police chief, Mohammed Ali Gandapur, pointed fingers at the local mosque, accusing it of inciting the mob by urging people to gather and demand vengeance. The situation spiraled further as the crowd swelled, reportedly including individuals as young as 13, whose anger was stoked by relentless propaganda. Efforts by police to clear blocked roads and disperse the crowd proved largely futile, with chaos reigning throughout the night. As the dust settled, the enormity of the tragedy became clear. Local authorities have since launched an extensive investigation, registering cases against hundreds of individuals believed to be involved in the incident. Additional security forces have been deployed to the region to prevent further unrest, but the damage to the area's reputation as a tourist destination has already been done. Hotels, once bustling with visitors eager to explore the scenic beauty of Swat Valley, now stand deserted as frightened tourists scramble to leave. The incident has cast a long shadow over the town, turning a place of natural beauty into the site of a grim, cautionary tale. This horrifying lynching is not an isolated event. Blasphemy accusations in Pakistan have long been a flashpoint for mob violence, often resulting in tragic consequences. The country's blasphemy laws, introduced during British colonial rule and made punishable by death in the 1980s, have become a rallying cry for extremist elements, often bypassing legal due process. Cases like this one highlight the dark underbelly of such accusations, where mere allegations can lead to deadly consequences without evidence or trial. In another recent case, a Christian man was fatally attacked after being accused of burning pages of the Quran. His death added to the grim tally of those who have fallen victim to vigilante justice fueled by religious zeal. These incidents reflect a growing trend of religion-fueled violence that continues to grip Pakistan, with mob mentality often taking precedence over law and order. The aftermath of this latest tragedy has left the nation grappling with difficult questions. On one hand, there is widespread outrage on social media, with many condemning the mob's actions as a barbaric and shameful affront to humanity. On the other hand, the fear of speaking out against such violence persists, with the risk of being labeled a blasphemer, a potentially fatal accusation in itself. For now, Madyan remains a town shrouded in grief and fear, its streets haunted by the echoes of a tragedy that should never have happened. The beauty of Swat Valley has been overshadowed by the brutality of its darkest hour, a reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked mob violence in the name of religion. Cary Stayner's childhood was marked by a level of trauma few could even imagine. His younger brother, Stephen, was abducted by a man and held captive for 7 agonizing years. The case gained national attention, particularly when it was made into a TV movie, I Know My First Name is Stephen. Tragically, just after the film aired, Stephen died in a motorcycle accident at the age of 24. While such tragedies often leave a lasting impact, most people don't turn into serial killers. But Cary Stayner, who later admitted he had fantasized about killing since he was just 7 years old, would become one of the most notorious criminals in modern American history. Stayner's dark desires initially focused on someone close to him, His original plan was to kill his girlfriend and her daughters, but when the moment came, he couldn't follow through. Instead, his focus shifted to strangers, tourists visiting the area where he lived and worked. Stainer was employed at the Cedar Lodge, a motel situated just outside Yosemite National Park, and was familiar with the area, having spent many nights camping in the park as a child. His victims were 42-year-old Carol Sund, her 15-year-old daughter Julie, and 16-year-old exchange student Silvina Peloso from Argentina. The horrific killings were carried out with chilling precision. Stainer lured his victims to their doom, killing them in the motel room, and then taking their bodies with him. Carol and Silvina were placed in the trunk of their rental car, which Stainer set on fire to destroy evidence. Julie's body was discarded elsewhere, but Stainer was determined to taunt the authorities. In a letter to the FBI, he included a map pointing to where Julie's body had been dumped, along with a cryptic message. "We had fun with this one." His arrogance didn't end there. He also dropped Carl Sund's wallet in Modesto, a city 80 miles away, in a deliberate attempt to confuse law enforcement and throw them off his trail. Despite the brutality of the triple murder, Stainer continued his daily life, working at the Cedar Lodge without arousing suspicion. But his bloodlust didn't subside. It boiled up again in July 1999 when he encountered Joy Armstrong, a 26-year-old naturalist working for the Yosemite Institute. Armstrong lived alone in a secluded cabin, making her an easy target. Stainer, driven by his compulsion, attacked her and decapitated her body in a frenzied rage. It wasn't until a witness spotted Stainer's truck near Armstrong's cabin that investigators started to piece together the truth. With the authorities closing in, Stainer was eventually arrested, and he confessed to the murders. His detailed admissions included gruesome accounts of the killings, which further chilled the community and shocked the nation. Stainer was convicted of all 4 murders: Carol, Silvina, Julie, and Joy, and sentenced to death. As of today, Cary Stainer remains on California's death row, serving a life sentence that reflects the sheer horror of his actions. His case continues to be a reminder of the depths to which a person can fall, even when they've endured tragic events in their past. Stainer's killings were senseless, driven by a dark, overpowering urge to kill. His story is one of loss, violence, and the unimaginable consequences of a broken mind. It serves as a chilling reminder that some people, no matter their background, can be consumed by darkness in ways we can't begin to comprehend. It was a bright August morning in 2023, and the tropical paradise of Pattaya, Thailand, was just waking up. Vacationers lounged by the pool, their biggest concern being which cocktail to sip next. But for 32-year-old Daria Yusufiak and her boyfriend, 30-year-old Oyop Behubny Fedor, both Russian tourists staying at the Seven Seas condo resort, their holiday was about to take a dive, and not the fun, snorkeling kind. By 6 a.m., what started as a romantic getaway had turned into something you'd expect from a true crime documentary. Daria, tragically, fell from their 7th-floor hotel room window in a way that no one, not even the wildest tabloid, could have scripted. CCTV footage captured the chilling moment. Daria dangled by her legs, arms flailing, before plunging headfirst to the ground. Security guards rushed to find her, face down, in a pool of blood, naked from the waist down. It was a grisly scene, the kind of horror story that quickly shatters the allure of vacation resorts. Enter the local police, summoned to make sense of the chaos. On the balcony of the couple's room stood Fedor, visibly drunk, clutching a glass of alcohol like a villain from a bad soap opera. To top it off, he flashed a V for Victory sign at reporters as if he were posing for a travel brochure rather than the aftermath of a tragedy. If uncooperative behavior were an Olympic sport, Fedor would have taken gold. He claimed innocence, denying he was even in the room when Daria fell. But, unfortunately for him, CCTV footage told a different story. The video showed Daria perched perilously on the window, her upper body hanging outside, while Fedor grasped her legs. And then, he let go. Now, whether Fedor was trying to save her or was directly responsible became the big question. Intentional act or a horrific accident? The investigation delved deep and the plot thickened. Lieutenant Colonel Kaiser Apaso, tasked with unraveling this tangled mess, reported no immediate signs of a physical altercation in their room. Yet, the place was a disaster zone, littered with food containers and empty alcohol bottles. A chaotic snapshot of a night gone wrong. Forensic officers combed through the scene, lifting fingerprints and combing through more CCTV footage to reconstruct what had happened. Adding to the intrigue, Daria had filed a police report just days earlier, on August 11th, claiming she'd lost her passport and needed help getting home. It painted a picture of someone ready to leave, not of someone about to plummet to their death. Fedor, meanwhile, wasn't making things easy for investigators. Contradictory statements, belligerent behavior, and an apparent fondness for denying obvious facts, like being in the room, turned questioning into an uphill battle. A drug test cleared him of narcotics, but his blood alcohol level was likely enough to make a pirate blush. Despite these hurdles, police pressed on, working to build a case. While they detained Fedor for drunken and disorderly conduct and suspected manslaughter, they hit a snag in getting a court's approval to formally charge him with homicide. The evidence was damning, but not quite airtight. Was it a moment of drunken chaos, an intentional crime, or a tragic accident? The case remains a haunting reminder that even in paradise, the unexpected can strike, sometimes from 7 stories up. The tragic case of Mackenzie Michalski, a 31-year-old American tourist, has left her family and friends reeling as they grapple with the shocking loss of their loved one. Mackenzie, a neurosurgery nurse practitioner from Portland, Oregon, had embarked on what she envisioned as a joyful vacation in Budapest, Hungary, a city she affectionately called her happy place. However, her life was brutally cut short in a chilling series of events that unfolded in early November. Mackenzie was last seen on November 5th at a bustling nightclub in central Budapest. Her disappearance triggered a frantic search, with her family, friends, and Hungarian authorities rallying to find her. Security footage revealed her in the company of a man, later identified as 37-year-old LTM, who would soon become the prime suspect. Their movements were tracked across multiple clubs on the night she vanished. On November 7th, the suspect, an Irish citizen, was apprehended and taken into custody. During questioning, he confessed to the killing, but his statements left investigators grappling with the grim details of what had transpired. Hungarian police pieced together a chilling narrative. The two had left the nightclub together and gone to the suspect's rented apartment, where their evening turned deadly. According to police, Mackenzie was killed during an intimate encounter. The suspect claimed her death was accidental, though the exact cause remains under investigation. Authorities have noted that the suspect went to great lengths to conceal his crime. He reportedly cleaned the apartment and hid Mackenzie's body in a wardrobe. The following day, he purchased a suitcase, placed her body inside, and rented a car to dispose of her remains. Driving approximately 90 miles southwest to the serene shores of Lake Balaton, the suspect left the suitcase containing Mackenzie's body in a wooded area near the town of Zigliget. Video footage released by police captured him leading investigators to the scene where her body was recovered, a stark and haunting reminder of the crime's brutality. The investigation uncovered disturbing evidence, including the suspect's internet search history. Authorities revealed he had researched ways to dispose of a body, police procedures for missing persons, and the behaviors of wild boars, searching whether they could consume human remains. He even inquired about the capabilities of the Budapest police, a chilling indication of his premeditation. At the crime scene, police discovered the suitcase along with several of Mackenzie's personal belongings, including fleece-lined boots, a handbag, and a credit card bearing her name. These items painted a heart-wrenching picture of a vibrant young woman whose life had been senselessly taken. The case has not only devastated Mackenzie's loved ones, but has also cast a shadow over Budapest, a city beloved by tourists for its vibrant culture and stunning architecture. Hotels and nightlife spots in the area are grappling with the fallout as the chilling details of the crime send ripples of fear through both locals and visitors. While the suspect remains in custody, the lingering questions surrounding Mackenzie's final moments and the senseless violence that ended her life continued to weigh heavily. Her story serves as a harrowing reminder of the fragility of safety, even in places we hold dear. As her family seeks justice and closure, they honor the memory of a bright and compassionate woman whose dreams were tragically cut short. Sarah Cusack, a 29-year-old from Savannah, Georgia, was just beginning what should have been the happiest chapter of her life. She had arrived in Puerto Rico for her wedding, eager to marry the love of her life and start a family. 5 months pregnant, she felt a rush of joy and excitement as she set off for a morning jog near the city of Fajardo in February 2009. The island's warm breeze and breathtaking scenery were a far cry from the pain that would soon unfold. It didn't take long for Sarah's life to be ripped from her in a horrifying and senseless act of violence. As she jogged along the road, Eliezer Marquez Navedo, a 36-year-old man with no apparent motive, appeared and grabbed Sarah off the street. He forced her into the trunk of his car, her pleas for help unheard by anyone nearby. Despite the shocking nature of the attack, Sarah remained calm enough to think clearly. Inside the trunk of the car, she managed to dial her fiancé, delivering a chilling message that would haunt him forever. "I'm going to die." She also offered a brief description of the vehicle, trying to give authorities the information they would need to track her down. The phone call provided the crucial clue. Authorities quickly triangulated the cell phone signal and traced it to Marquez, who had already been flagged as a suspect. Police responded swiftly, locating the car and arresting Marquez before he could go any further. When they took him into custody, he was covered in blood, but it was clear the damage had already been done. An hour after Sarah's desperate phone call, her body was found. The horror of what had transpired was revealed in the most gruesome way. Sarah had been brutally murdered, her throat slashed in a violent attack that left her lifeless. Her fiancé, still reeling from the news, would never have the chance to see her again. Despite her efforts to alert authorities and give them the necessary details, it was too late. Marquez, who later claimed he wasn't aware that Sarah was pregnant, confessed to the crime. He admitted to kidnapping, assaulting, and ultimately killing her, but couldn't offer any plausible reason for his brutal actions. The attack appeared to be completely random, with no discernible motive to explain such an appalling act. It was an unfathomable tragedy that shattered a family, left a community in disbelief, and devastated a fiancé who had been eagerly awaiting her return. The senselessness of the crime made it all the more heartbreaking, as no one could understand why Sarah was chosen as the victim of such cruelty. Marquez was convicted of kidnapping, rape, and first-degree murder, and the court sentenced him to a staggering 105 years in prison. Yet, despite the severity of the sentence, it seemed like no amount of punishment could ever bring justice to Sarah, or bring her family any peace. The case remained clouded in mystery, with no clear reason for the brutal attack emerging during the investigation. The random nature of the crime seemed almost too strange to be believed. Some have suggested that Marquez might have seen Sarah as an easy target while she was alone, but the facts surrounding the case remain shrouded in uncertainty. For her family, the loss of Sarah was an unimaginable blow. She had been a loving daughter, a devoted fiancée, and an excited soon-to-be mother. The joy she had felt on her arrival in Puerto Rico was quickly overshadowed by the horror of what followed. As her fiancé tried to piece together the last moments of her life, he was left with the haunting memory of her final words. Words that no one should ever have to hear from someone they love. In the midst of what should have been the happiest time of her life, she was taken in a way that no one could have ever imagined. The case stands as a stark example of how violence can shatter lives in an instant, leaving behind questions that may never be answered. Despite the justice served, the pain of her loss will never truly fade for those who loved her. It was a scorching June day in 2023, the kind that practically dares you to dive into the water. In Hurghada, Egypt, 23-year-old Vladimir Popov was living his dream by the Red Sea, having moved there with his father Yuri to escape the turmoil of war-torn Ukraine. But fate had a different, far darker plan in store. That day, Vladimir and Yuri headed to the beach. their usual escape. A strong swimmer, Vladimir eagerly plunged into the inviting waves. His girlfriend joined him, both unaware of the silent menace lurking beneath the surface. What followed was the stuff of nightmares. A tiger shark suddenly appeared and attacked with brutal force. One moment, Vladimir was floating peacefully. The next, screams filled the air as the water turned into a chaotic swirl. "Papa! Papa! Save me!" Vladimir's desperate cries rang out, freezing Yuri on the shore, powerless to intervene. A bystander captured the horrifying scene on video, the kind of footage you can't unsee. Vladimir fought back with all his strength, but the shark was relentless, delivering fatal bites. A witness, shaken to their core, murmured, "It's eating him now." Within moments, Vladimir was gone, the sea eerily still once more. Local fishermen later caught the shark, discovering Vladimir's remains in its stomach. A grim end to an already horrific ordeal. Shocked beachgoers beat the shark to death, handing it over to marine scientists for further study. Yuri, shattered by the loss, described the tragedy with heart-wrenching clarity. "It all happened in 20 seconds. What kind of help can you give in a meat grinder like that?" His anguish was matched only by the surreal aftermath, as the shark was dissected and prepared for museum display, a macabre reminder of the deadly encounter. The attack spurred Egyptian authorities to close a 74-kilometer stretch of coastline for investigation. Experts speculated about the shark's behavior. Was it pregnant, mistaken identity, or the same predator behind 2 prior fatal attacks? Tiger sharks, known for their aggression, rank among the top species responsible for attacks. Though such incidents in the Red Sea remain rare, only 24 unprovoked attacks have been recorded in Egypt since 1828. Vladimir's death left a lasting scar on the sunny shores of Hurghada, transforming a tourist haven into a scene of tragedy. Yuri, grappling with his unimaginable loss, planned to cremate his son's remains and return his ashes to Russia. "It was an absolutely ridiculous coincidence," he said, struggling to make sense of the senseless. This chilling tale is a haunting reminder of nature's unpredictability. For Vladimir, what began as a day of joy turned into an unforgettable tragedy, leaving Hurghada forever shadowed by the story of his final swim. What began as a lighthearted moment turned into a harrowing tragedy when a Chinese businessman's fascination with a 1.5-ton walrus led to a fatal encounter. Jia Lijun, an ardent admirer of the walrus housed at a zoo in Liaoning Province, China, had often shared his enthusiasm with friends and family. He'd sent them photos and videos of the colossal marine mammal, marveling at its sheer size and strength with messages like, "So strong, so big." Yet his admiration took a deadly turn during an ill-fated visit. Driven by his affection for the walrus, Li Jun decided to get up close and personal, entering the gated enclosure to snap a selfie. Clutching his selfie stick, he approached the massive female walrus, unaware of the danger lurking beneath her playful demeanor. In a tragic twist, the walrus suddenly grabbed him from behind, her enormous flippers wrapping around his body. She dragged Li Jun into the pool within the enclosure, her strength proving too great to resist. A zookeeper, who had cared for the walrus since she was a calf, immediately rushed to Li Jun's aid. This caretaker, familiar with the animal's habits and trusting of her typically gentle nature, dove into the water in an attempt to rescue the businessman. However, the walrus, seemingly mistaking the entire ordeal for play, pulled the zookeeper under as well. The scene turned grim as both men were overpowered and drowned by the massive creature's weight and strength. What made the tragedy even more heart-wrenching was the likely innocence of the walrus's intentions. Reports suggest the animal was not acting out of aggression, but rather in a misguided attempt to play and offer what she perceived as a hug. Her actions, though fatal, were an extension of her natural behavior, a tragic reminder of the inherent risks in close encounters with wild animals, even those accustomed to human care. The incident, captured on a zoo surveillance camera, quickly went viral on Chinese social media. The footage, while chilling, underscored the immense power of these marine mammals and the unpredictable consequences of human interaction with them. In the video, the walrus's movements, initially slow and almost gentle, escalate into a chaotic struggle, culminating in the devastating loss of 2 lives. Li Jun's tragic demise served as a somber warning about the thin line between admiration and overstepping boundaries in wildlife settings. While his intentions may have been purely innocent, his decision to enter the enclosure placed him directly in harm's way. The zookeeper's death, meanwhile, highlighted the deep bond and sense of responsibility that caretakers often feel for the animals they raise, a devotion that can lead them into perilous situations. The walrus, despite being at the center of this tragic event, remained unharmed and is believed to have returned to her regular routines. Experts and animal behaviorists weighed in on the incident, emphasizing that such animals, even when raised in captivity, retain their natural instincts and can unintentionally pose significant risks to humans. The tragedy sparked widespread discussions online and within wildlife conservation circles about the responsibilities of zoos and visitors alike. Many called for stricter safety protocols to prevent similar accidents in the future, arguing that better education on the risks of human-wildlife interaction could save lives. For Jia Lijun's family and the loved ones of the zookeeper, however, no amount of policy change can undo the loss. The incident stands as a poignant reminder of the respect and caution required when interacting with nature's most majestic and powerful creatures. What began as an attempt to capture a moment of connection ended in heartbreak, leaving behind a haunting lesson. In the presence of wild animals, even the most innocent of intentions can lead to devastating consequences. In August 2011, French tourists Cassandre Bouvier, 29, and Huria Mumni, 23, set off on a hiking adventure in Argentina's Quebrada de San Lorenzo, a nature preserve near Salta, in the northern part of the country. Their trip, however, would end tragically, as the 2 women never returned. After 2 weeks of uncertainty, their bodies were discovered, both having been subjected to unspeakable violence, raped, and then shot to death. Although the case didn't gain much coverage in English-language media, it sparked strong reactions in both Argentina and France. As the investigation unfolded, 7 people were arrested as potential suspects. The case quickly gained high-profile attention, with a dramatic reenactment of the crime taking place to help clarify the sequence of events. The following year, the trial brought over 200 witnesses to testify, as the court worked to unravel the details and identify the individuals responsible for the shocking murders. The legal proceedings captured the public's attention as authorities sought justice for the victims and their families. For Cassandre Bouvier's family, the tragedy was doubly devastating. Her father, in an interview with the Buenos Aires Herald, spoke candidly about the torment of seeing his daughter's lifeless body in the morgue. Despite the overwhelming grief, he did not harbor ill will toward Argentina. He acknowledged the country's lower crime rate compared to many others, stating that Cassandre was well aware of the risks involved in traveling, but that she had chosen to explore the beauty of the country regardless. His perspective on the situation reflected a sense of understanding and a desire to avoid holding the entire nation accountable for the actions of the few responsible for such heinous violence. The emotional weight of the case was not just felt by the Bouvier family, but also by both the Argentinian and French public. The brutality of the crimes led to calls for justice, but also for deeper reflection on the safety of tourists and the challenges in securing remote areas. For a long time, it remained a source of grief and national conversation in both countries. It was a picture-perfect vacation, or at least it started that way. Abby Lutz, 28, a nanny from Utah working in sunny Orange County, California, and her boyfriend, John Heathcoe, 41, a self-proclaimed health nut and founder of a nutritional supplement company, were living their best lives in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. They'd chosen the luxurious Rancho Pescadero hotel for their romantic getaway, splurging on a $780 a night room surrounded by pristine beaches and endless margaritas. But as anyone who's ever booked a too-good-to-be-true vacation knows, paradise sometimes comes with fine print. June 12, 2023, started out like any other dreamy day in Cabo. Sun, sand, and maybe a touch too much guacamole. But by nightfall, Abby and John began feeling sick, seriously sick. Convinced it was just the classic traveler's foe, food poisoning, they made their way to a Mexican hospital for treatment. Severe dehydration, they were told. Fluids were administered, reassurances given, and Abby even managed to text her dad, "Good night, love you," a nightly ritual that had always felt routine. But this time, it was tragically final. The next day, Abby and John returned to their lavish hotel room, likely hoping for some rest and recovery. Instead, the unthinkable happened. Housekeeping entered their room at around 9 p.m. on June 13th to a scene that no one should ever witness. John was found unresponsive in the shower. Abby was lifeless in bed. Paramedics were called, but the couple had already been dead for at least 10 hours, and it wasn't just the eerie stillness that struck first responders. Fernando Valencia, one of the paramedics, recalled walking into the room and immediately feeling dizzy from what could only be described as toxic fumes. "We left the room as quickly as possible. My first thought was, are we going to die too?" Valencia later said. It was, by his account, one of the most terrifying experiences of his career. The initial suspicion, gas inhalation. Autopsies later confirmed that Abby and John had succumbed to intoxication by an undetermined substance. There were no signs of foul play, ruling out anything sinister beyond the invisible danger that had seeped into their sanctuary. Hyatt, which owns Rancho Pescadero, swiftly closed the property for an investigation. In their statement, they assured guests and staff that safety was their top priority. Yet, whispers of faulty infrastructure began to circulate. Abby's family, still reeling from the news, speculated that the deaths were caused by improper venting, possibly carbon monoxide poisoning. For Abby's family, the loss was unfathomable. Her stepsister, Gabby Slate, and stepmother, Raquel Chapini Lutz, shared their grief, recalling Abby's last texts and how she'd described her illness as the sickest she'd ever been. Their sorrow was compounded by unanswered questions. A GoFundMe page was set up to help bring Abby's body home and cover funeral expenses. In their heartfelt plea, the family wrote, "Abby and her boyfriend thought they had food poisoning, but we were told they passed away peacefully in their sleep. We believe it could be carbon monoxide poisoning." The Baja California Sur State Prosecutor's Office stated there were no signs of violence, and while gas inhalation remained the prime suspect, no definitive conclusions had been drawn. For now, the cause of the toxic fumes that claimed 2 lives in paradise remains a chilling mystery. It's the kind of story that makes you second-guess your travel plans. As dreamy as those glossy resort brochures may look, you never know when a paradise escape might have a dark secret lurking in the air. Literally. Abby and John went to Cabo for sun and serenity, but instead they became the haunting cautionary tale of a dream vacation that turned into a nightmare. A moment of thrill-seeking turned fatal when 32-year-old Spaniard David Gonzalez Lopez lost his life after being gored by a bull while attempting to take a selfie during a bull run in Villaseca de la Sagra. The tragedy unfolded in the early hours of Sunday, leaving onlookers in shock as Lopez suffered grievous injuries that proved fatal. Lopez, eager to capture the intensity of the event, turned his back on the charging bulls, focusing instead on his phone's screen. Oblivious to the imminent danger, he failed to notice one bull breaking away from the herd and heading straight for him. The animal delivered a devastating attack, goring him in the neck and thigh and tossing him into the air as horrified spectators looked on. A video of the incident, now widely shared, reveals the chilling sequence of events. Lopez had ventured out of the safety of the protected area into the center of the arena. As he filmed the chaotic scene, including a collision between 2 bulls that left one appearing unconscious, a third bull spotted him. With a sudden burst of speed, the animal charged, striking Lopez from behind and lifting him off the ground with its powerful horns. Emergency responders rushed Lopez to the hospital, but despite their efforts, he succumbed to his injuries shortly after arrival. Villaseca de la Sagra, a town known for its annual bull running festival, is one of many Spanish locales that celebrate this controversial tradition. During these events, crowds gather to run ahead of a herd of bulls released onto the streets or into arenas. The adrenaline-fueled spectacle draws participants and spectators from far and wide, but has long been a source of heated debate. Animal rights campaigners have condemned the practice as cruel and inhumane, arguing that the events subject the bulls to unnecessary stress and suffering. Critics also point to the risks posed to human participants, with injuries and fatalities occurring almost every year. The death of David Gonzalez Lopez adds yet another tragic chapter to the contentious history of bull running festivals. Lopez, a resident of the nearby town of Villasequilla, had attended the event with friends. Known to be adventurous, he likely sought to immortalize the thrill of the festival on his phone, unaware of the deadly consequences his actions would bring. The incident has reignited discussions about the dangers of prioritizing digital documentation over personal safety. Experts have increasingly warned about the risks of selfie culture, where the pursuit of the perfect shot can lead individuals to ignore their surroundings in precarious situations. Lopez's death is a stark reminder of how quickly moments of excitement can turn into tragedy. While bull running remains deeply ingrained in Spanish culture, events like this have prompted growing calls for reform or outright bans on such festivals. Advocates argue that the time has come to replace these risky and contentious traditions with safer, more humane celebrations. For now, the town of Villaseca de la Sagra mourns the loss of a life cut short amidst the chaos of its storied festival. The tragedy leaves an indelible mark on all who witnessed it, underscoring the inherent risks of a tradition where man and beast collide in an arena of raw danger. What should have been a night of revelry and excitement ended in heartbreak, reminding us that in the pursuit of thrill or spectacle, safety must never be forgotten. This serial killer earned a chilling reputation with multiple nicknames, including the Serpent, the Bikini Killer, and the Proofreader. His monikers reflected both his ability to slip through authorities' fingers like a snake and the unsettling nature of his crimes. One name was a reference to the bikini left behind by one of his victims, and another connected to his tendency to meticulously review the details of his killings, almost as if proofreading his work. Between the mid-1970s and the early 1980s, this killer targeted Western tourists on the infamous Hippie Trail across Asia. His modus operandi involved drugging his victims, robbing them, and then taking their lives in cold blood. He didn't have a consistent method for how he ended his victims' lives, though one of the more notorious killings involved drowning a woman in a bathtub. His calm and calculated approach made him all the more terrifying, and the international nature of his crimes led to a global hunt for him. After a spree of murders across multiple countries, he was finally apprehended and placed in Indian custody in 1986, but what followed was nothing short of extraordinary. In an audacious move, he managed to escape from prison, pulling off an elaborate scheme that would make his name synonymous with clever manipulation. His strategy was simple yet brilliant. By ensuring that he would serve a longer sentence in India, he avoided facing the death penalty in other countries like Thailand, where he had committed some of his most heinous crimes. His ability to outsmart the authorities and escape was so remarkable that he earned the notorious moniker the Serpent, a title that captured both his cunning and his ability to slip through the fingers of law enforcement. This legendary escape only added to his infamy, solidifying his place in criminal history as a master of evasion. His story became a chilling example of how a combination of ruthlessness and intelligence could allow someone to evade justice for years, leaving a trail of terror in their wake. He was released from prison in 1997 and, remarkably, was allowed to live in France, where he turned his notoriety into a lucrative career, charging for interviews. His story seemed to only grow more infamous over time, as his ability to escape justice made him a sort of celebrity in true crime circles. In 2003, while still a wanted man in several countries, he traveled to Nepal. There, a sharp-eyed journalist recognized him, but despite the attention, he continued to believe that his freedom would last. Even though he is now over 70 years old and faces a second conviction for murder, this serial killer's fame behind bars has only increased. The bizarre celebrity status he's cultivated from his notoriety seems to have helped him maintain a sense of confidence in his eventual release, despite his past crimes. The complex case continues to captivate and horrify people, as the killer himself remains convinced that one day he'll walk free. It was supposed to be a trip filled with love, family reunions, and scenic escapes. David James Fisk, a 57-year-old business executive from Sydney, Australia, and his partner, Lucita Luke Barron Cortez, 55, were on a vacation they had eagerly anticipated. Accompanying them was Luke's daughter-in-law, Mary Jane Cortez, 30. Their plan was simple: fly from Sydney to Bali, soak up some sun, and then head to the Philippines to visit Luke's children. A brief retreat to Tagaytay's Serene Lake Hotel would be the cherry on top before their return to Australia. But this idyllic holiday turned into an unthinkable nightmare. David and Luce were a beloved couple in Sydney's Sutherland Shire. David, a business development executive at JWA Financials, had a long and respected career in business technology. Luke, originally from the Philippines, was a loving mother and a cherished member of her community. The two were inseparable, radiating warmth and joy. Just last December, they had celebrated the engagement of David's daughter, Lenda, in Sydney. Life was brimming with milestones and happiness. However, on a fateful morning in July 2024, that happiness was shattered. Hotel staff at the Lake Hotel in Tagaytay discovered a grisly scene. David, Luke, and Mary Jane were found dead in their room. Their hands and feet were bound with electrical cords and shoelaces, and their mouths were taped shut. David's throat had been slashed, and both women appeared to have been suffocated. The gruesome discovery sent shockwaves through the local community. Tagaytay's police chief, Charles Davin Kekwan, confirmed that valuables such as phones and other belongings had not been taken, ruling out robbery as the primary motive. CCTV footage offered a chilling clue. A man in a mask, a black hoodie, and maroon shorts was seen leaving the victim's room a few hours before their bodies were found. He carried a sling bag, suspected to contain the murder weapon. Security guard Rodney Pera-Hinog recalled questioning the man earlier that morning. The intruder had shown a key card and claimed to be staying in the room. With this interaction and the CCTV footage, police zeroed in on him as the prime suspect. But who was he, and why commit such a horrific act? Back in Sydney, David's twin daughters, Lenda and Brittany, were devastated. Already grieving the loss of their grandmothers to cancer in recent years, the news of their father's violent death was a blow they couldn't fathom. The family released a heartfelt statement. "The love we have for our father and Lucita is so dear, and this situation is like living a nightmare. We pray for answers for the truth and for their safe return to Australian shores." To cope with the aftermath, the family set up a GoFundMe page to assist with the costs of bringing David's body back to Australia and to support the ongoing investigation. Meanwhile, the Lake Hotel issued a statement expressing deep regret over the tragedy. "The safety and well-being of our guests and staff are our top priorities," they said, pledging full cooperation with authorities. Even Tagaytay's mayor, Abraham Tolentino, promised swift action. "We are deeply sorry to our Australian friends. We will resolve this as soon as possible." Police formed a special task force to hunt down the suspect, searching exit points and reviewing more surveillance footage. Theories about the motive swirled, with investigators speculating a personal connection to Mary Jane might have triggered the crime. As the investigation unfolded, the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade provided consular support to the grieving families. David's body was set to return to Sydney, while Luke and Mary Jane were to be laid to rest in the Philippines, according to their families' wishes. David, Luke, and Mary Jane were remembered as kind, loving individuals whose lives were cruelly cut short. For their families and friends, the tragedy left an unfillable void. The chilling mystery behind their brutal murders remains unresolved, leaving everyone to wonder, how could a dream vacation end so horrifyingly? As authorities continue the hunt for answers, this tale serves as a grim reminder that even in paradise, shadows can lurk. Backpacking through Southeast Asia is often a rite of passage, promising adventure, discovery, and stories to last a lifetime. But for two young women, Holly Bowles and Bianca Jones, their journey to the vibrant town of Vang Vieng, Laos, became a descent into an unimaginable nightmare. What began as an ordinary stop at a popular hostel ended in tragedy, leaving behind a story that haunts travelers to this day. Nana Backpackers, nestled in the heart of Vang Vieng, was the kind of place where the world's young and restless came together. Known for its wild parties and free-flowing drinks, the hostel pulsed with music and laughter. On November 9, 2019, the carefree atmosphere masked a danger that no one saw coming. Among the backpackers soaking in the lively vibe that day was Lily, a British traveler who would soon become a reluctant witness to a horrifying chain of events. It all began innocently enough. Lily had accepted just 2 free vodka shots from the bar, served by Ton, a charismatic bartender who had become a familiar face to guests. The drinks flowed, and the hostel hummed with energy. But something about those drinks was off, terribly off. Not long after, Lily's world turned upside down. A creeping nausea gave way to waves of violent illness. Her vision blurred, and soon she was plunged into terrifying darkness, her temporary blindness leaving her disoriented and panicked. Her body convulsed as she vomited endlessly, her heart racing to an unbearable 170 beats per minute. The fear was overwhelming. What was happening to her? Unbeknownst to Lily, her ordeal was just the beginning. 2 other travelers, Holly Bowles and Bianca Jones, were staying at the same hostel. Both were vibrant 19-year-olds, brimming with the thrill of exploring the world. That night, they too fell victim to the same mysterious poison. By the time Holly and Bianca sought medical help, the damage had been done. Holly's condition deteriorated rapidly, and she was rushed to a hospital in Thailand. But even the advanced care in Bangkok couldn't save her. She passed away within days, her family left to grapple with the devastating loss. Bianca followed soon after, her loved ones confirming her death just days apart from Holly's. In the days that followed, the grim puzzle began to take shape. Authorities turned their attention to Toan, the bartender who had poured the fatal drinks. When questioned, he insisted the vodka was straight from the factory, untouched and untainted. To prove his innocence, he poured himself a shot and drank it in front of investigators. His claim seemed plausible, but the damage was undeniable. As news of the deaths spread, Lily came forward with her story. Her chilling account added a new layer of urgency to the investigation. She had narrowly survived, but the symptoms she described, temporary blindness, relentless vomiting, and a dangerously high heart rate, painted a picture of acute alcohol poisoning or something far more sinister. The hostel, once buzzing with life, became a somber scene of mourning and suspicion. The lively music was replaced with whispers of fear and grief as travelers packed their bags and moved on, shaken by what had unfolded. The tragedies of Holly and Bianca struck a nerve with the global backpacking community. The allure of Southeast Asia, with its stunning landscapes and party culture, now carried an ominous warning. Not everything is as it seems. Tales of counterfeit or tainted alcohol had long been whispered among seasoned travelers, but these deaths brought the danger into sharp focus. Back home, the families of Holly and Bianca were left with more questions than answers. How could such vibrant lives be cut short so senselessly? Could something have been done to prevent this? For Lily, the survivor, the experience was a stark reminder of how quickly adventure can turn to peril. The investigation into Nana Backpackers and its practices continued, but for many, the damage was already done. The tragic deaths of Holly and Bianca, coupled with Lily's harrowing escape, remain a haunting reminder of the unpredictable dangers lurking in even the most inviting corners of the world. Their story serves as both a cautionary tale and a call for greater awareness. Beneath the surface of carefree adventures lies the ever-present risk of the unknown. Sometimes, the greatest dangers are the ones we never see coming. Michael and Thelma King weren't casual vacationers who stopped by St. Martin for a fleeting escape. They were deeply connected to the island, treating it not just as a destination, but as a second home. Hailing from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, just outside Charleston, the Kings were in their 50s and had built a successful career in the restaurant business. Their love for St. Martin ran so deep that they invested in a condominium on the island and embarked on an ambitious project, constructing a rum factory. Their ties to the community were strong, and by all accounts, they were well respected and beloved by those who knew them. However, the vibrant life they had cultivated on the island came to an abrupt and harrowing end in September 2012. The couple fell victim to a violent robbery, a crime that not only extinguished 2 bright lives but left an indelible stain on the serene image of the Caribbean haven. On the night of the attack, 3 young men, already emboldened from robbing a nearby Chinese restaurant, set their sights on the King's home. The assailants weren't random burglars stumbling upon a crime of opportunity. They were deliberate and determined, and their actions that night would prove to be both ruthless and premeditated. Breaking into the King's residence, the intruders quickly subdued Michael and Thelma, binding them to eliminate any chance of resistance. What followed was a horrifying act of violence that would shock the island to its core. The assailants slashed the couple's throats, leaving them to die in their own home. With blood on their hands, the perpetrators fled the scene, carrying with them $80,000 in cash and jewelry. The senselessness of the crime didn't end there. In a chilling display of callousness, the 3 men used a portion of their stolen money to indulge themselves at a local brothel later that night. This brazen behavior underscored the sheer disregard they had for the lives they had taken and the pain they had caused. News of the brutal killings spread quickly, sending shockwaves through both the local community and the King's hometown in South Carolina. For St. Martin, the loss wasn't just a tragic crime, it felt personal. The Kings were not transient tourists. They were part-time residents who had woven themselves into the fabric of the island. Their deaths shattered the peace and sense of security that many on the island had taken for granted. The investigation into the murders moved swiftly. Authorities worked diligently to track down the perpetrators, and when they were caught, the weight of justice came down heavily. The man, identified as the ringleader, received a life sentence for his role in the heinous crime, while his 2 accomplices were sentenced to 22 and 28 years, respectively. During the trial, Judge Tamara Tijuis spoke candidly about the impact of the killings. Her words went beyond the confines of the courtroom, addressing the ripple effects the crime had on the King's family, their friends, and the entire St. Martin community. The judge's remarks highlighted the deep scars left by the murders, scars that would not easily heal. For the King's loved ones, the loss was immeasurable. Michael and Thelma were more than a successful couple. They were adventurers, dreamers, and generous spirits who embraced life to its fullest. Their presence brought joy to those around them, and their love for St. Martin was evident in everything they did, from their investments in the island to their genuine connections with its people. In South Carolina, the Kings were remembered as pillars of their community. Friends and family mourned not just their absence, but the violent manner in which their lives had been taken. Meanwhile, on St. Martin, their deaths served as a stark wake-up call about the vulnerabilities of even the most idyllic places. The legacy of Michael and Thelma King endures through the memories of those who knew and loved them. Though the tragedy remains one of St. Martin's darkest chapters, the King's memory continues to endure in the hearts of those who knew them. Their lives were marked by kindness, ambition, and a love for adventure, a legacy that couldn't be extinguished, even in the face of such senseless violence. Their loss left a great mark on both St. Martin and their hometown in South Carolina. It also sparked conversations about safety and crime on the island, with many speaking up on how quickly and violently life can be upended. The King's story serves as a harsh truth about the unpredictability of the world a reality their friends and family were left to confront as they grieved their absence.